Every afternoon, Thomas the tank engine puffs along his branch line with Annie and Clarabel. First, they pass the farms. Next, they pass Elizabeth, waiting at her level crossing. Then, they come to a small station outside of a village. This is a special place to Thomas. Whenever children hear Thomas coming along, they get out of Bertie the bus, waving until he is out of sight. One day, Thomas was running late. He had stopped at a red light to talk to some new children. Percy the green engine was waiting too. "Hurry up, Thomas," called Percy when the signal dropped. "If you're late, Sir Topham Hatt might get a new engine to replace you." He would never do that, thought Thomas, but he was worried. Next day, Thomas hurried along the line. Just ahead was the small station. There, on the platform, was an inspector waving a red flag. Next, Thomas saw some children. They looked very worried. Something must be wrong, thought Thomas. "Help, Thomas, help! We're glad to see you," called the children. "Please, will you take us home?" The station master explained to Thomas's driver that Bertie had broken down, and all the parents would be worried if the children were late. Thomas waited as the children clambered into Annie and Clarabel. Then he took the children to the next station. When Thomas finished his journey, he was very late. He was worried that Sir Topham Hatt might be cross with him. "I warned Thomas," puffed Percy to Edward. "He's been late one time too many. He'll be in trouble now." But next morning, when Thomas picked up his passengers, Sir Topham Hatt was nowhere to be seen. "Thank goodness," sighed Thomas. Thomas knows every part of his line. Just ahead was a stretch where the hot sun had bent the rails on the track. "Careful, Thomas," called his driver, but it was too late. "That's done it," said his driver. "We shan't get any further today." "But what about my passengers?" asked Thomas. "Don't worry, they'll be looked after," replied his driver. While workmen repaired the line, Thomas had to shunt trucks in the yard. Bertie came to see him. "I understand you need my help again." "Yes, Bertie," replied Thomas sadly. "I can't run without my rails." Bertie set off to collect Thomas's passengers. "Hello, Bertie," they said. "We're glad you're here." Bertie drove along the road that runs by the railway. He stopped at each station along the line. Sometimes he stopped between stations to let people off closer to their homes. Thomas felt miserable. "I've lost my passengers to Bertie. They like him better than me." A few days later, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Thomas. "Your branch line is repaired. I'm going to change your timetable so that you and Bertie can work together more." When Thomas reached the station, there to his relief were all his passengers. "Bertie is a good bus, but we missed our train rides with you," they said. Later, Thomas spoke to Bertie. "Thank you for looking after my passengers." "That's all right, Thomas. I like to make new friends, but I'm glad to share them with you." "Bertie, you're a good friend indeed."